Okay, so this is going to be a review of the integumentary system as per anatomy. This should be only a supplement, but we will be going a little bit in depth. Okay, so if you look at it as a layer cake, mosaic model, if you will, superficially to deep, we have number one, the epidermis, which is classified epithelially as keratinized, stratified squamous epithelium. Number two, below that, we have the dermis, which is composed of connective tissue, not epithelium. And remember, in between the dermis and epidermis, you have the basal membrane. We have the papillary dermis, which is composed of areolar tissue, and then reticular dermis, which is a misnomer. It's actually dense irregular, and that's because you want to stretch the skin in many different ways because we are stretching the skin constantly. So we want to have multi-directional or omnidirectional tensile strength. And for three, hypodermis, that's going to be our subcutaneous tissue or fat, and this is often not included in the integumentary system just because it's not technically part of it. Fat is not skin. Okay, so our skin layers, we start off with the epidermis. We have stratum corneum, the very top layer. We have keratinized stratified squamous cells, and these are already dead. Our stratum lucidum, we have next, and then stratum granulosum, and then below that stratum spinosum, and then stratum basale. Then over here we have our dermal papillae. That's just the kind of foldings here, so that way we can have more cells migrating up, because remember, we increase our surface area by adding more cells. And then over here you have sebaceous glands produce oil. And then for our corpuscles, which are going to be our sensory receptors, Meissner's corpuscle or corpuscle is going to be within the dermal papillae, and that's going to be our touch receptor. Pacinian corpuscle is going to be our pressure receptor, and that's going to be located roughly closer to the hypodermal layer. And then over here we have our eccrine sweat gland, and that's going to be releasing sweat through Merrick's secretion, so it's just simple exocytosis. And then apocrine sweat glands, which aren't included here, are going to be connected directly to the hair follicle, much like sebaceous glands, and they are much larger, and they release contents through apocrine secretion, which is a pinching off of the cell. And then we have the erector pili muscle that just has your hair stand upright, and that is mediated through the beta response through fear, and So this is pretty much the overall model you'll be seeing of the skin. And obviously, remember that epithelium is avascular, relies on microcirculation of the capillaries, and then the connective tissue is going to be vascular and innervated here. Okay. So epidermal layers, let's go more in depth. Superficially to deep, stratum corneum are going to be keratinized cells, except they have no nucleus, and therefore they are dead. So they are enucleate or anucleate. Stratum lucidum is going to contain a proprotein or a immature protein, elidin, which is a precursor to keratin. And then naturally, stratum granulosum is going to contain another proprotein, keratohyalin, a precursor to elidin and keratin. The stratum spinosum is going to be below that, and it's going to have like spiky little cells. And then stratum basale is going to be the basal cells that are touching the basal membrane of the epidermis. These cells are mitotically active, and they line the papillary dermis, and they migrate superficially as they mature, and they become each one of these cells until the stratum corneum falls off. All right, so some considerations to keep in mind. Some trick topics, if you will. The thin skin does not contain any stratum lucidum, but they do still produce elidin, so you're not going to find any stratum lucidum within thin skin. Thick skin has a more extensive papillary dermis and corpuscle density, so the papillary dermis is going to be tighter, and so you're going to see a lot more lumps in a smaller amount of area, and there are going to be a lot more like Meissner's corpuscles because you need more touch receptors because of how thin the skin is. Thick skin does not have any hair follicles and thus hair, so you think of the palmar skin or the plantar skin, you're not going to be having any hair follicles there. Melanocytes, which are also, you need to remember melanocytes, they're located superficial to the basal membrane, and what that means is they're just located at the very end, or the very deepest part of the epidermis. Pacinian corpuscles are involved in pressure sensation. They're going to be located right above the subcutaneous layer. Meissner's corpuscles are going to be involved in touch, and they're going to be located within the dermal papillae. Eccrine or American sweat glands have less voluminous lumen than apocrine glands, so you're going to be having a smaller kind of lumen. Apocrine glands are connected to hair follicles, just much like sebaceous glands, and they're often they are only found in the axillary and inguinal regions, so you're going to be finding that in the armpits and between your legs. Sebaceous glands are also connected to hair follicles. Alright, so let's get into the histology. So right here is, it's kind of hard to tell, but it's pretty much thick skin here, because in thick skin you find no hair. That's one way to identify it. And then you can kind of look close. You can see that there's a layer. This is a stratum corneum. And then there's a layer right here that could be the stratum lucidum. And there's another layer here, you can tell by the stain. Kind of a little bit of stratum granulosum. But after that, then you have the stratum spinosum and the stratum basale. But it's kind of hard to tell with this skin. But I would probably say thin overall. It kind of looks thick to me, but overall, all of the stain is kind of homogeneous here, so I would say this is thin skin. So you only have the stratum corneum, stratum granulosum, stratum spinosum, and then stratum basale. Okay, so this is an example of what a Pacinian corpuscle will look. This is right above the adipose layer. You can't really see it in this picture. And it looks like there's like two of them merged together here. So axon, axon, and then you're going to be looking at, it looks like an onion slice here. And it's quite large, relatively large. And then over here we have both sebaceous glands here, and then we have our American sweat glands. Remember, simple cuboidal for that, and glandular epithelium. These cells are stained with, I assume, methylene blue. They're actually stained, so you can tell this is water soluble, so this must be a sweat gland. And over here, sebaceous. They do not pick up the stain as well, because they have lipophilic or fat or oil loving solubility, so they don't pick up the water stain as well. And you can tell that this is going to be merocrine because of how small the lumen is. Okay, and building off that topic, you can kind of see apocrine secretion, or apocrine secreting sweat glands are having a larger lumen. Over here is smaller lumen. Remember, this is probably procured from the axillary region. Or your eyebrows, I think they have some too. Don't quote me on that. But apocrine secretion, remember that part of the cell pinches off to release the product. And over here we have a better view of sebaceous glands. Remember, they're always connected to the hair follicle. And you can see that this is sebaceous because not only do they not pick up the stain, but they're also connected directly to the hair follicle and located in the middle, kind of. And then lastly, we have the Meissner's corpuscle. That kind of looks like a stack of coins, or like a kind of a beehive, if you will, and they're located in the dermal papillae. And if we look here, we can tell this is thick skin because we have the stratum corneum, the stratum lucidum, stratum granulosum, kind of over here, and then we have the stratum spinosum and basale. I lied. That's not the last. This is the last here. So what we have over here is, again, just another example of the sebaceous glands. Remember, they don't pick up the stain as well. So you're going to identify this as the sebaceous gland. But anyways, that was just a quick review, and I hope this helped. See you.